Welcome to the pod focusing on the aftermath and recovery from the devastating Palisades fires of January 2025. Journalist Joel Pollack, entrepreneur Oren Ezra, and technology expert Ron Goldschmidt serve up to the moment vital news and information, discuss the ongoing recovery efforts, and introduce us to the individuals and trades who are playing key roles in rebuilding our cherished communities. We're diving into the deep end and learning quickly how we can move forward together. We know the pain because we're living real-time news, stories, resources, and insights on the ongoing recovery effort. Buckle up. We're three homeless guys.
Welcome to Three Homeless Guys, the podcast about the Palisades fire and the rebuilding effort. I'm Joel Pollack, and I'm here with my co-host, entrepreneur Oren Ezra, and technology expert Ron Goldschmidt. And I'm actually speaking to you from my new workplace. This is the California Post, and we are building an office which is all in that direction. I can't show you all the construction mess and all the desks and things like that, but this is my new gig. I think I hinted at it in recent weeks. I left Breitbart News after 15 incredible years, and I'm here in LA, not full-time. I'm here essentially several days a month and spending most of my time in Washington, D.C., where my family is, and my wife is working for the Labor Department, the still shut down Labor Department, but she's working there in theory, and we're going to be there for a little while. But I'm part of this incredible project, and the New York Post, if you're familiar with the New York Post, one of the country's top papers, actually I think it is the country's oldest newspaper, they are launching a California sister paper, the California Post, and it's going to be very similar in tone. It's going to have incredible coverage of politics, lifestyle, also sports, Hollywood, gossip, Page Six, and it's going to change the conversation in California. We don't really have a serious statewide news outlet, and we're based in LA, but we're going to cover San Francisco, Sacramento. We're going to cover everything going on in the state of California and really provide a picture for people who live here that we don't really have right now. We have these local media markets. We've got the LA Times, San Francisco Chronicle, Sacramento Bee, San Diego Union Tribune. You've got a few other local papers and radio and a few other things, but essentially there's no statewide media universe. There is just local, and then there's national. And I think part of the reason Proposition 50 passed, even though it actually, in my view, disenfranchised California voters, is that people don't really know how to articulate or even to ask about state interest. What are our interests as a state? Because we don't have a platform where people can come together. So I'm going to be the opinion editor of the California Post, and you can hear and see some of the sights and sounds of construction going on. But it's very exciting. I've been in LA for the last week. I'll get into that in a second, but that's where I am right now. And it's been just a wonderful opportunity to connect back to home and to be part of giving our community a voice. So that's what's new with me. And we're going to talk about media on this show. Lots to talk about, actually, not just the California Post. There are some other things that you'll want to hear about, but that's my new update.
Congrats, Joel. Great having you back here, even if it's just for a couple of weeks, a month. I echo what you're saying. We definitely need a statewide voice. It's becoming more and more apparent, even after the fires, that there's really not a lot of outlets for which you can express, kind of like what has come to the front in terms of the crisis that we had, how we're dealing with it. Everybody's kind of like grasping at straws to express their frustration through the traditional media outlets, and I think that we need a new voice. I'm very glad that California Post is launching, and I know that they made an incredible hire with you because you've been a great voice on many other issues, and I know that with a new vehicle that the Post is launching, I'm kind of really looking forward to to what you guys are building. I know as somebody who's lived in New York for many years, the New York Post was always like just kind of like a bit of a maverick voice, even if it had like the connotations of being a bit tabloidy, and like, you know, it did get to that crux of issues very much a lot of the times. And then, you know, I used to work on trading floors in Wall Street, and like there wasn't a morning where we didn't come in and just, you know, like look at what the Post what the Post said about something. Great headlines. I don't know who the front page folks are at the Post, but if they can do the same work at the California Post, I think you've got a winner.
Yeah, we've got great people. I mean, the headlines are all about how you convey a story very quickly. And I saw the people who make that magic at work. There was a controversy you might remember a couple of weeks ago about President Trump building a ballroom at the White House. And I was watching the New York Post opinion team deal with an editorial or an op-ed. I don't remember which one it was, but they were trying to come up with a headline. And the headline they came up with was "Panic at the Ballroom," which is so funny because, of course, it's a reference to the band Panic at the Disco. And I think it has an exclamation point after the word panic in the middle of the headline. And it just makes fun of the whole hysteria over this ballroom. You know, you can have whatever opinion you want. There are people on the left who don't like it. There are people on the right who don't like it. A lot of people think the White House needs it because every time you see one of those state dinners they have or a big event, you see these celebrities walking across the lawn outdoors. Actually, I didn't know this, but a lot of the VIPs at the White House events have to use porta potties at the White House. So imagine you're the Secretary of State or the foreign minister for some European country or for India or something, and instead of going to the bathroom in the White House, you have to go to a porta potty on the lawn. Not an acceptable situation. And, you know, I'm sure it creates some construction jobs. People said, oh, you know, it looks bad in this time when people are talking about affordability. You know, you've got Mahmoud Mamdani running on affordability in New York, and Trump ran on affordability last year. So how are you going to build this gilded ballroom in the middle of an affordability crisis? But I think the White House needed it, as people on both sides have said. But whatever view you have of it, it's the kind of controversy that people have very strong opinions about, even though it doesn't really affect their lives directly. And the New York Post is so good at summarizing those issues with a funny headline or a great illustration. And we're going to do the same thing in California. Obviously, California has a different tone. It doesn't have quite the same brash attitude that the Post has in New York, but it's going to have a kind of California irreverence to it. And I've just watched this team over the first week that I've been on the job, and they're incredible. And we're all super busy and super exhausted after 5 days. I'm speaking to you on a Friday, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity. Sad to leave Breitbart News, but really glad to be here and see a lot more from us in future.
And you couldn't come at a better time. There seems to be a lot of news happening. Sorry, Oren, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Oren. Yep.
So first of all, congratulations, Joel. I know how hard you work, and I think it will be amazing for California to have somebody that can raise a lot of the issues. I've seen you this week, and you don't stop for a second with both your phones, like constantly working. And yeah. I think it's great. And for me, like somebody that have never been in the media, only like this podcast in the last year, I'm starting to see the power of media. And actually, I want to give a big shout out to Lindsay, Horvath office, that have been helping a few of our listeners that reached out to us, and we were able to put them in touch with the Lindsay office, and were able to get their permits finally and start building. So I know there is like 3 people that starting to build in the next like couple of weeks, which is great. And I don't think they would be able to do it without like talking directly to Lindsay office, and obviously through just like using us as like a media of communication, just to put them in touch with the right people, really help them. We are going to put on the show notes today like a link that people can put their name, and their information will be sent to Lindsay's office, and hopefully they can help with expediting or getting answers for people that are stuck with their permits. Our goal from day one on this podcast was to help rebuild the Palisade and Malibu after the fires, and I think that slowly, I think Joel will have some news that he'll talk about it now, but slowly we're starting to see the fruits. If it's like little wins of helping one person over here to talk to the right person to get his permits, or some other big things that we're going to discuss, but I starting to see the power of media, even if it is with our like little channel. So great, happy to have you in the California Post, Joel, and happy to see you here like once or twice a month.
So wait, let me just understand how this happened. So you reached out to LA County Supervisor Lindsay Horvath after people emailed the podcast for help with permitting.
Yeah, a couple of people emailed, a couple of people just saw me randomly, like in in Malibu, or like and we started talking, and they said that they're like stuck with their permits. So immediately I texted Lindsay. Lindsay Horvath put me in touch with Sophie Sudani, which is her deputy district director of community, and put me in touch with another guy. His name is Zach. I forgot his last name. Sorry. But both of them like really jumped on it immediately and got in touch with the people, and these people, like after like few weeks or months, got the answers that they were waiting for and were able to move forward. Now I think that the people that sit in the county need to understand that every week that there is a delay in their permits is $5,000. For us to live outside our houses, do all these things is like, on average, I'm saying it's like around $20,000 a month. So every week that we can save to a family is another $5,000. And I'm happy that they were listening and were able to help.
And of course, that number is actually going to run higher as the ALE coverages run out on insurance, because most people are not going to be, unfortunately, it looks like, back in their homes within the 2-year time frame for which ALE expires. So after that, they're on their own. Mortgage benefits also, like if there's any forbearance happening still in the first year, are also going to go away. So this problem is going to become more and more acute, and so timing is becoming more and more of an issue for folks to start rebuilding and getting back to their homes. And we're just trying to help that process. So glad we've done it on this limited case, and we'll try to do as much as we can.
Well, we're helping in that way. We're also helping in another way, which is that you remember we've had Joy Chen on the show twice. She is the founder of the Eden Fire Survivors Network, and they had a press conference on Thursday where they demanded that California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara resign. Now, he only has a year left in his second term. He can't run for re-election, but he only has a year left. But people are desperate for the money they need to rebuild, and they say they don't have a year to wait for someone else to win that election. Ben Allen, who we've also had on the show, is running for that position. There are some other candidates, at least one other one that I know of. But people in Altadena, Pasadena, Malibu, Palisades have had enough, and they had a press conference. Now, out of that press conference came a front page New York Times article on the front page of the paper Friday, November 7th. And it's all about the problems with insurance and how they're not helping people who've gone through the fire. And the headline is California Fire Victims Urge State to Hold Insurers Accountable. And they're saying there's just not enough being done by the state, by Ricardo Lara, by Governor Gavin Newsom. The author of the article is Katie Benner. This is in the New York Times. So it's not in Breitbart. It's not even in the New York Post or the California Post. It's in the New York Times on the front page. So this is coming from the paper of record, center left, maybe a little bit more left than center, but certainly one of the most important and powerful publications that doesn't have a political agenda necessarily to grind against a likely Democratic candidate for president in 2028, that is Gavin Newsom. I don't know if we can do this, but can we pull up the video Joy sent me? This is a video from Fox 11. We don't have to play the whole thing. If we just play the first minute or so, of footage from the press conference. And Oren, I sent you that link, and hopefully if there's any ads, you can just skip to the end of the ad before we see the actual
Survivors
footage.
of the Eaton and Palisades fires are demanding the state's insurance commissioner resign or for the governor to remove him. This follows a report alleging he made secret deals with insurers, leading to thousands losing coverage. Fox 11's Christina Gonzalez. She's live in Altadena with more on their calls for accountability. Christina.
Yeah, and it's not often that you see Eaton and Pacific Palisades people together, but they're uniting on this. They're asking the governor to step in, and if he doesn't, they're asking the legislature to step in. Listen to this.
Yes, he needs to step down. Why? Because he doesn't care about us.
You're a victim of a fire. Then you're a victim of the incompetence of the fire department. And now you're a victim of the insurance commissioner.
Commissioner Lara has proven he won't protect consumers. Please replace him with someone who will.
They want California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara gone. Survivors of both Eaton and Palisades fires, which resulted in the death of 28 people, destroyed over 16,000 structures, and are blamed for more than $250 billion in property and economic losses.
Yesterday morning, the New York Times published a front-page expose revealing that in 2023, Commissioner Lara secretly struck a deal with insurance companies, incentivizing them to dump tens of thousands of California families ahead of the Los Angeles fires, while securing rate hikes for themselves.
Lara and Governor Newsom touted the 2023 agreement as a way to stop insurance companies from canceling state homeowners whose last insurance resort is California's FAIR plan.
The truth is in the details. FAIR plan enrollment has doubled since the governor and Lara announced that they were going to give the insurance companies everything they want.
CalFAIR program, so our insurance premium doubled and our coverage dropped by a third. And so here we are, no home.
He's one of many who lost everything, saying they had been dropped by their insurance companies before the fires. And even those who had insurance with major carriers say
Being denied claims over and over again, that's a daily thing that we're fighting.
everyone here saying theirs are among the more than 400 complaints filed with the Department of Insurance.
Several months ago, Commissioner Ricardo Lara met on a Zoom meeting with 250 fire victims, heard our stories, and promised to scrutinize the insurance companies managing of our claims. But the next day, he approved a $1 billion rate increase for State Farm.
FEMA helped us. That'll end in December. Our house is just being remediated. Where do we go then? How do we pay, mortgage and rent? This is reality. There's a cliff we're going to fall off come January. And we're being told that 8 out of 10 survivors are in that position. Now, Fox 11 did get a statement today from Commissioner Lara's office, reading in part that he has issued a formal bulletin requiring insurers to fully investigate and pay legitimate smoke damage claims, and also against the California FAIR plan after it failed to follow the same standards, and is also currently investigating State Farm over its handling of claims. The full statement is going to be on our website at foxla.com. As for the governor, no comment from him at this point. And live at Altadena, I'm Christina Gonzalez. Back to you in the studio, Mark.
No comment from Governor Gavin Newsom. What's the long-term plan of these wildfire victims if there's no resignation from Lara and nothing from the governor?
They say they're not going to support the governor on his presidential bid. They were very open about that. They actually were saying, here he was, and we stood in the photo ops and so forth with all the help. If he doesn't come forth in some way, they're saying that they're going to be very clear and very loud when he gets on the national stage.
Yeah, and we should note his presidential bid that has not been formally announced.
So there you go. That was very interesting. I mean, a really great summary of the problems people are having with insurance. But of course, you saw Joy there talking about the expose in the New York Times. And if you go back to the beginning of that segment, and it's available at Fox LA, they say Eaton and Palisades fire survivors came together, which is very unusual. And the reason they came together was because of this podcast. When we had Joy on, people started contacting her from the Pacific Palisades And she wrote to me to say that that's the reason they were able to build this coalition between two communities on completely opposite sides of the city. So when we talk about the power of media to achieve things for people, this podcast was a part of that. It was about putting together the coalition that could pressure the insurance commissioner and the insurance companies to start doing the right thing.
And I think we're just at the beginning of that journey, really. It's like we're going to keep on pushing here to keep on pushing on to the more of the state level and the national level even at some point, because I think like there's a lot of voices here that have come to the forefront over the last 11 months or 10 months where people were kind of disenfranchised. And I think voices like this podcast and Joy Chen has been incredible at kind of like bringing these communities together are becoming more and more powerful. And I think as we head into the election year, it's even become more of an issue where voices like ours need to be heard. I'm super grateful to the members of the community for stepping up. And we knew that we were like members of strong communities to begin with, but it just shows what has happened and what continues to happen is how strong we are. And I believe as long as we maintain that steadfast goal to keep on pushing on, our voices are going to become even more heard and powerful.
All right, so that's part of what we're going to try to do at the Post here is to give Californians a platform and a voice. And it was just really important for me to take this job because of what we all went through in Pacific Palisades. I covered the fires for Breitbart News, but I really wanted to focus on state and local news. And it's unusual, right? Because most people, if you're in the news business, you move from state and local to national, international. I was on CNN earlier this week with Alex Michelson, who's an incredible anchor and reporter. He works incredibly hard. He's not just a pretty face. He's really, really smart. And he had a great show, one of the only statewide shows, called The Issue Is on Fox 11. And he left Fox and now has a 3-hour-long nightly show on CNN called The Story Is. And it's basically late night shift on just about every topic. He had me on in the second week that he was on the air. And he's great, but he's not providing that anymore here in California. He's doing it on the national, international stage. That's the natural progression. Bill Melugin, great border reporter, immigration reporter. He moved from Fox 11 to National Fox. And we see that a lot. But this is an investment that News Corp is making in coverage of California because they see the vacuum and because they see the need. And I really wanted to be part of that. And it's just been incredible. I wanted also to share some of the photographs of the week so far, if I could. I sent these to Oren just to give you some impressions of my week here, or to give you some of my impressions. And let me see if we can pull those up, Oren. Can we share the screen? I can show some of the photos. All right, so that's my house. This was taken on Monday, the 3rd. Beautiful sunset, those beautiful, beautiful winter sunsets that we have in LA when you have a little bit of cloud cover, especially high up, and you have the sun setting and the light reflecting and just beautiful pink sunset. My house is still there. I got the test results back from the contamination testing, which we were finally able to do. I knew there was lead inside the house, but now we have several other heavy metals and we have some problems in the soil. So we're going to have to do some pretty aggressive repairs. That all theoretically starts this week, although now we have to get new estimates based on the additional hazards. So lots of work to do on that house, but it's still there, and I'm grateful that it's still there. Although there's just so much to do, and it keeps getting bigger. So who knows? Let's go to the next picture, please. So this is one of the great things about being in Southern California. These winter sunsets. I went down to Newport Beach to visit some friends on election day, actually, do a little bit of reporting. And I saw a visiting Israeli musician, Idan Reichel, who was in town. But you can't avoid the beauty of Orange County and the coast and these spectacular sunsets. My favorite sunsets are the ones at low tide, like this one. And actually, as we speak today, on Friday the 7th, I think it's going to be the lowest tide of the month. And when you have low tide that coincides with sunset, which is happening today, you have incredible light because the wet sand creates a mirror effect. So you're not just getting the beautiful light in the sky and the sunshine, but you have this amazing reflective surface that you can use in photographs. And so this photograph was taken from the Newport Beach Pier. There was a couple that were taking pictures of each other, and I just happened to get the bird and the woman in the white dress walking into the surf as the sun was going down, and just incredible. I mean, the amount of everyday beauty that we're exposed to in California is not to be taken for granted, because let me tell you, when you're out east, there's some nice seasons. You know, fall in Washington, D.C. is pretty. Cherry blossom season in March, very nice. Don't ask me about the rest of the year. Please, you can keep it. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so I went for a run on Santa Monica Beach, the way I often do or did here, and I noticed that there was a lot of stuff washed up. Now, that's not too unusual. Different times of year, you see different types of seaweed, algae, sometimes debris of various kinds, plastic shovels from kids' toys, plastic bottles, other things wash up on the beach. But the beach is full of these charred remains of the fire. The runoff from the fire, the debris from the fire is still in the ocean. And you can see there in the foreground that piece of wood, obviously having been burnt. It looks like it was a part of someone's house. Looks like it was a board or a structural element, something like that, because you can see how it's sanded, or it's got the grain running in one direction in the part that isn't burnt. So it's really just incredibly sad to see that we still have this effect on our waters 10 months after the fire, but that's the reality. In fact, 10 months to the day.
I want to say something about it, Joel.
Yeah, go for
we
it.
had, I forgot her name, from Hilda Bay. We had her on the podcast. And I remember when she came on the podcast, I was like kind of shocked from everything she said. She said, we're testing the water, everything is fine. Even though we all saw what's happening in the water. And I think that now, like you're saying, almost like 10 months after the fires, seeing something like this, I'm starting to wonder, Hilda Bay, I just went on your website yesterday. Can you please post something and telling us really, you're an organization that's getting paid by LA County, I assume, or by LA City. I don't know who is donating the money over there, but if your name is Hilda Bay, can you come out with a report and showing us what's really happening on the bay, what's really happening after 10 months of the fire, after we all been driving over there and we all seen everything that was washed into the water. And I remember how shocked I was with her response over there that they're testing the water and everything is fine. So I wonder if they can come up with a report now telling us truly what's the situation after we've seen everything washed off.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should follow up. I mean, I think she was talking about chemical contaminants, but the physical debris, that's just an entirely different issue. But let's try to follow that up. Let's hit the next slide. I had to share some of the beautiful impressions. Even after the fire, Pacific Palisades, from a distance anyway, is still very beautiful. This is the full moon setting over the Santa Monica Bay, as seen from the restaurant of the Huntley Hotel in Santa Monica. You see the curve of the bay there, Santa Monica Mountains beyond, and there's the full moon, and there's our beloved Pacific Palisades, which one day will be hopefully even more beautiful than it was in the beginning. Let's hit the next one. This is my team from the California Post, and this is in fire station number 69 in Pacific Palisades. This is meeting with Kit, who's the captain over there, who was very kind to take us through and show us the maps and show us the fire department and basically explain the course of the fire to us. Gentleman with his back to the camera is our editor-in-chief, Nick Paps, and the three other individuals are members of the leadership team at the California Post. So those are my colleagues I've been working with this week, and I was able to take them on a tour of Pacific Palisades to show them the damage. This was at the Palisades Garden Cafe. Just a little photograph of a family working with a man who I believe is an architect on plans for rebuilding their home. And I just saw out of the corner of my eye that this family was paging through the different plans and having a very serious and difficult conversation, it looks like, about what they're going to be able to do perhaps what they're not going to be able to do. But I thought this was just a perfect picture of what's going on in many people's lives right now as they try to rebuild. People are taking steps toward rebuilding, but can you get the permits? Can you get the money from the insurance company? Can you afford the construction? And you can just see from the expressions on people's faces that even though they're intensely interested in rebuilding, they're looking at some very serious challenges. Let's hit the next one. This is the Marquez School. So, I lived next to the Marquez Charter Elementary School that burnt down. And Marquez moved back several weeks ago into these prefabricated structures. And they're actually working out pretty nicely. I mean, it helps, I think, that the original Marquez campus also had prefab structures. So it's not that big a change in some ways. I'm told the bathrooms in this new situation are much nicer than the previous ones. So the kids are pretty happy. They have the lower yard. They have areas to play. There's no permanent structure yet. They're going to start building that in a couple of years. But I just thought it was a nice thing to show, again, that beautiful sunset we had earlier in the week. And there's the school. And there I am in our offices at the California Post. And I'm sitting on that couch right now. In fact, I took that picture earlier today. So that's just a little glimpse of what I've been up to this week, getting oriented to the new job and touring the Palisades, talking to people, reconnecting with friends. There'll be a lot more of that to come because I'm going to be in and out quite a bit. But there's a lot of work to do and there's a lot of news to cover. But you can see the effect that we have, that if you have good coverage of an issue and you have the right kind of interviews, and sometimes opinion also drives the news. That's my job at the California Post, is to present opinions. And if I had to summarize what I think the motto is of the opinion page, it's going to be, we deserve better. It's not Republicans versus Democrats. It's not conservatives versus liberals. All of that will happen on the page. I'm sure there'll be a lot of partisan debate and ideological debate. But I think what we can all agree on, and we've learned this in the fire and the recovery effort, what we can all agree on is that we just want what works. And we have a bias toward what helps people. And if you're a Democrat and you're bringing solutions that work, great. If you're a Republican, fine. We just want to make sure that we have leaders who are accountable, and we want to make sure that people are aware of what's going on. So it'll be a forum for different voices, different approaches, but everybody, I think, understands that we deserve better than we've had, and that the fire, while a natural disaster, was made much worse by failures at many different levels. And we're starting to see some of those failures continue. So we need to address that. And it's a window onto problems that are similar throughout the state. I mean, obviously the California Post is not just about the Palisades fire, but I know that I'm drawing extensively and intensely on that experience to inform how I edit the opinion page.
Joel, you wrote one of your first pieces for California Post was an opinion piece about the after action report and some of the news that came out this week. Can you just, for those catching up on some of the news from the past week, can you go into that? I don't feel like between all the news and the election and everything that's happened this week, I don't feel like it got just enough attention.
Yeah, the LAPD released their after action report on the fire, and it was largely overlooked because it happened on Election Day. So everybody was talking about Prop 50 and Mamdani and whatever. But it's really, really, really interesting. It's a 90-page report. I read it. Most of the last 30 pages are a timeline. So it's really kind of a 60-page report. And unlike the LA Fire Department report, which pulled a lot of punches, the LAPD report is very hard-hitting, and it talks in plain language, very, very straightforward language, about what went wrong and why the LAPD did not live up to its own standards in dealing with Palisades fire. And there are a couple of really interesting points. One is, and we reported this when I was at Breitbart News, we were the first to report this, a lot of the officers that would have been in Pacific Palisades and Malibu that day directing traffic and helping with evacuations had been assigned to protect President Joe Biden, who was on his way out of office and wanted to make a family visit to LA. Now, I don't know why you can't make a family visit when you're done with the job. I guess he wanted to fly in on Air Force One or whatever. And that's not a criticism specific to that president. There are many presidents who do things like that from both parties. In retrospect, it was not a smart thing to do because it diverted so many police resources to presidential protection And ultimately, Biden couldn't go where he wanted to go anyway because the high winds and the fire made it very difficult. But police were basically diverted from where they would have been on the west side of LA to guard LAX, to guard President Biden. And this became a particular problem when it came to traffic, as we know, with the traffic jam on Sunset. And there was a request that went out for motorcycle police because with all those cars bunched up together, only the motorcycles could get through. And the police around President Biden could not spare any motorcycles, they say. So no motorcycles were sent to Pacific Palisades. They did end up sending 65 patrol cars, and they say the patrol cars really helped deal with some of the evacuations that were happening as people started to realize what a big disaster this was. In the afternoon and evening of the 7th of January, the patrol cars went through and made sure people were going to leave their homes. But the point is, police were not available where they needed to be, when they needed to be, and part of it was because of this presidential detail that they were all on. Then we also reported this at Breitbart. There was a breakdown of communications between the police and the fire department. And what we were hearing is that people who were calling 911 to talk to police about the traffic were being told that they should call the fire department because it was actually about a fire, not about the traffic. The police dispatch and the fire dispatch didn't know what the other one was doing. I think one or the other didn't even know there was a fire. I think police dispatch didn't even know there was a fire. And then this is astonishing from the report. When they got to Station 23, where they set up a command post, they later had to abandon it because Station 23 was threatened by fire. But they got to Station 23, they weren't even communicating with each other there. So you had the firefighters and the police in the same physical space, but they weren't communicating. So just a total mess. Oh, and one other thing. The report says that the LAPD has very little experience or training in working with other emergency agencies outside of the city of Los Angeles. I don't know how that's possible in a state like California, where you have natural disasters all the time. You have CAL FIRE, you have LA County, you have all kinds of state agencies. How is it that the LAPD has no training in how officers are going to interface with other emergency agencies? That to me is about leadership. Okay, whoever's in charge, meaning the police chief and the mayor, did not make sure that police were trained for the kinds of situations where worst case scenarios can happen. And as leaders, you've got to prepare for that. And also there's federal money for that. There are federal grants for these kinds of trainings that they can do. They didn't do it. So that's all in the LAPD After Action Report. And I wrote about that. It was one of my first pieces for the Post. It's still officially at the New York Post site, but yes, it's a California Post piece. And yeah, there's just a lot in there. We're slowly building this picture of what actually happened, and a lot of it is quite disturbing.
And I think going back to what you previously said, Joel, that it's not about like a Democrat or Republican. I think that especially in in our small community, you've seen us giving great words to whoever did a good job after the fire. Like I think that the office of Lindsay Horvath, like that, is really trying to help. Or for instance, Joy Chan. She's not a Republican, and it doesn't matter if she's a Republican or a Democrat. And I think going toward like a year of election over here in California, it will be very important to find for us the people that are like that can do the job. The people that can really come with experience, know how to run big organization, because this is a huge organization. I'm running a small organization of 40, 50 employees. It's a lot of work. It's hard. It's not easy. And to bring the right people, that's what we should care about. We shouldn't care about if the guy is a Democrat or Republican, or I don't care what he is. We need people that will come and run the city like they run a very successful business organization. And I think those are the people that we should bring to the podcast and should hear from them. People that really want to come in and bring from their experience to help us solve these things. For instance, I haven't seen any one good thing that the office of Newsom did after the fires. Not even one thing. Okay, everybody failed. Everybody is failing sometimes. Everybody failed on January 7th. Can somebody tell me one good thing that the office of Newsom did to help us after the fire? I haven't seen, other than like hiding things like we just showed. I haven't seen even one good thing. And again, I don't care if he's a Democrat or a Republican or whatever he is. He's working for us. We have to remember, this guy is supposed to be over there working for us, and I don't think he's working for us.
Talk about it. Talk about this in terms of like, even the Ricardo Lara press conference, right? Like, we all know that this guy failed miserably in his job and is failing continuously. Yet, until this press conference, the last thing that I at least heard is that he's planning to run for another position. And so this constant failing up is just it's not right, and B, we need to put a stop to it. Like, this cannot continue to happen.
Yeah. Well, we'll have a lot more to say about that as we get into some of these races and so forth. But there have been people who've come on our show, Tracy Park, Ben Allen, other people, Lindsay Horvath came on the show, people who want to reach the public. I think that's a good sign that at least they're trying. And we still have an open invitation to Rick Caruso. We have an open invitation to anybody else. But, you can tell, I think, how serious people are by how they engage the public. So with that, I have to run. I've got to get back to what's going on here, and just let you guys have any last words before we close this episode.
Just that there was a lot of great feedback to last week's episode with Trey. So I recommend folks that are in the legal course of action to listen to that and get whatever bits they want out of it. And continue sending us questions, continue to send us suggestions for follow-up guests and folks we'd like to hear from, questions. Subscribe, like the channel. That's the only way that we can get the word out, and it's getting slowly more and more out, which is great.
Yeah.
All right.
Up on last week episode, I think the one important thing that people need to remember is that, like, for instance, if somebody had like $100,000 worth of insurance on the things he had in his house, the big thing about the lawsuit of what came out last week is if we'll win the lawsuit, if, for instance, you had $300,000 worth of things in the house, keep a record of everything, because then you can go after the delta if you will win this lawsuit. So it's important thing for people to make sure that they keep a very clear list of what they had.
All right. Well, for this episode, this has been Three Homeless Guys. We're at threehomelessguys.com. Three Homeless Guys on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. You can reach us at pod@threehomelessguys.com. And until next time, from the offices of the California Post, on behalf of Oren Ezra, Ron Goldschmidt, and myself, this is Joel Pollack saying, stay strong.
Thanks for listening to Three Homeless Guys. If this episode hit home, please subscribe to our channel. Check out threehomelessguys.com for RSS feeds to your favorite streaming service. Follow us on social and share this with a friend who needs to hear it. Drop us a review or shoot us a message at pod@threehomelessguys.com. We'd love to hear from you. Stay strong, and we'll catch you next time.